Hello. I'm just finishing up my breakfast beer here. I hope you all had a breakfast beer. I don't have a, oh, clicker, good. I hope you all had a breakfast beer. I suppose maybe a lot of you didn't, but this is a Weisswurstfrühstück, and you'll have to excuse the fact that I don't actually speak German. But this is a very traditional Bavarian breakfast. So as you can see, there's some white sausage, that's Weisswurst right there, a pretzel, a little bit of mustard. And then right there on the right, a nice, tall, cool glass of Hefeweizen, German wheat beer. Now, admittedly, this is probably a little bit kitschy, maybe a little bit more touristic, but I am sure that there are still real Bavarians who actually really do have this for breakfast anymore. And certainly, it's an important tradition that's attached to this area and these kinds of beers. And in general, to put it as succinctly as possible, what I really want to talk about today is this idea that beer is culture. So right there, there's a can of 6 Point Ale that comes from New York City. And that phrase, that essential truth, beer is culture, is written on each and every can that leaves that brewery. What I hope is that you leave here today thinking in some ways about how you might go back to wherever you're from and start a microbrewing revolution in your own backyard. Unless, of course, you're watching this from Portland, Oregon, or Asheville, North Carolina, or maybe Bamberg in Germany, in which case you probably have a pretty good idea what I'm talking about already. So, why would you want to grow your own homegrown microbrewing scene and the associated beer culture that goes along with it? Before I make a case for the socio-cultural benefits here, I want to talk and just kind of get it out of the way a little bit about a kind of boring but important point, which is sort of the economics, right? Consider the global beer industry. It's actually really, really huge. In 2009, it was about 181 million kiloliters of beer produced globally, okay? 181 million kiloliters of beer. To put that into terms that are kind of a little bit easier to consider, if you're from around here, if that beer were flowing over Niagara Falls, it would take about 27 hours. 27 hours. It's a lot of beer. Now, behind this, of course, is an awful lot of money, not a huge surprise either, and it only gets bigger as this industry continues to kind of consolidate. So I'll just give you a quick example of that. In 2008, when Anheuser-Busch was taken over by InBev, they put together the largest cash deal in corporate history. They got together $52 billion to take over the biggest American brewery, which has actually been their ambition for many, many years. So there's an awful lot of money right behind this, and that's kind of worth pointing out. But obviously, when I talk about growing a local beer culture, I'm not really talking about establishing the next SAB Miller or Anheuser-Busch InBev, right? I'm talking about what the industry refers to as craft beer. So, of that giant amount of beer that's produced every year, about a quarter of it's actually made in China, and the US makes about 14% of it. Of that 14%, you can see the market shares right here. I know the text isn't totally clear. The biggest share actually still belongs to Anheuser-Busch InBev. Actually, 1 out of every 2 beers sold in this country is made by Anheuser-Busch InBev. You see Miller Coors has a pretty big slice of the pie. Others, imports, smaller companies, and there, craft brewers account for about 7%. Okay? So craft beer is something that's actually been growing and expanding pretty rapidly over the course of the last 30 years. And this is the sort of scene that is associated much more so with a beer culture. Let me just pause and sort of mention, well, what makes you a craft brewery? Right now, there's about 1,759 or so breweries operating in the US, and that is the largest number since Prohibition, right? In 1930, that drops to 0, and then you see it starts to rise precipitously in about 1990 or so. Certainly over the last 30 years, we've seen something of a revolution. What makes you really a craft brewery more than anything else is, by the Brewers Association, a definition of the numbers of barrels that you produce. And right now that definition is 6 million barrels a year. It sounds like a big number, but basically if you're Sam Adams or smaller, you're a craft brewery. As also defined by the Brewers Association, a craft brewery pays an awful lot of attention to the quality of the ingredients that go into the product and other things like that. And the craft brewing industry is actually providing an awful lot of jobs out there. About 100,000 jobs by the Brewers Association are created by craft beer. So it is an economic engine. It's not too bad. And of course, there's all sorts of related industries too. I mean, you know, manufacturers of brewing equipment, the producers of the brewing ingredients, people who grow barley, people who malt it, people who grow hops, things like that. So really, it's a pretty decent economic engine. And there's one more element I would add: tourism. There are actually people like me actually, who will travel simply to go have beer in a different location, to go have that beer as fresh as possible in the environment where it was created. You take in more than just the beer. Okay, so obviously by growing a local beer culture, you're having a positive economic impact, but it goes a little bit further than that even too. This is what's called LoDo, or Lower Downtown of Denver, Colorado. And by about the 1980s, like a lot of American downtowns, LoDo was ailing. It was pretty emptied out. There weren't really a lot of people hanging out down there. It was kind of a skid row. Along comes a guy named John Hickenlooper, and what John Hickenlooper and some of his partners do is they started the Wynkoop Brewery. It's actually in that picture. It's a brewery pub. They started that in about 1988. As a result, they started revitalizing this neighborhood, okay? So by having this brewery down there, by bringing people down there, by bringing foot traffic down there, they started bringing associated businesses. They started bringing boutiques, coffee shops, other restaurants. Pretty quickly, loft conversions, right? All the kind of rehabilitation, adaptive reuse that we like to talk about, especially here in Buffalo, was driven primarily by this brewery. Now, for John Hickenlooper, the story doesn't exactly end there. He's done really well for himself. He's gone from being a brewery owner to being the mayor of Denver, and now he's the governor of Colorado. Not bad. And I think we should elect a lot more ex or even current brewers. Buffalo has done so in the past. Maybe they'll do so again. There are other neighborhoods that actually have a similar story attached to them, not to make the point too belabored, but the Brooklyn Brewery actually had a very similar impact on Williamsburg in New York City. And the McMenamins brewery pub chains all over and around the Portland area and as far north as now Seattle and Vancouver, they're experts at adaptive reuse. This particular building that you can see in the lower right was an elementary school. It's now a brew pub. You get to sit in the cafeteria, maybe your former cafeteria, and drink beer. Pretty cool. So beer can drive all kinds of excellent stuff from an economic, from an adaptive reuse point, but where I was really trying to go here is that, again, beer also creates culture. It's attached to culture, and it drives culture, and it interacts with culture. And the way that I kind of want to approach this is just to say that what beer really does is it helps create these culturally critical places that are referred to by sociologists as a third room. What's the third room? Well, the first room is your home, right? You spend a lot of time there. Your second room is your work. You obviously spend a lot of time there, maybe more than you'd like to. And then your third space, your third place, your third room, they use kind of all terms, is a place for cultural exchange. And there are a lot of things that can actually serve as a good third room. It doesn't have to be a bar. It could be a cafe or a coffee shop. It can be a beauty parlor or a barber shop. It can be a community center, wherever people kind of get together in a neutral sort of space and create culture. But I would argue that beer drives the best of all possible third places because it involves the moderate imbibation of alcohol, right? And this is a good example of what a third room really also entails, right? There are a lot of things that make a third room comfortable, but this is family friendly, obviously, right? I mean, the idea of kids in your normal American bar festooned with TVs and loud jamming music, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, right? Those kind of bars don't really function as third places or third room spaces as effectively as something like an English pub or a German beer garden does, where it's much more of an event where alcohol isn't the focus. The focus is creating community and creating cohesion. There are a few other things that are important aspects of a good third room, and one of the more important ones is that they also play the role of a social leveler. Once you walk into one of these spaces, even people of high station and people of low station are coming together over this drink to communicate and talk about different kinds of things. And the fact that they go back to a mansion or a hovel is less critical because there they are in this space where they're kind of all equals. They're all just paying customers in the third room. Now, There are some other characters that make a third room pretty important, but what are the kinds of exchanges that happen in these third rooms that matter? Obviously, they provide relief from the stress of life and from loneliness and alienation, but the idea that they're places of cultural exchange and generativity is what I think is really, really important. They are places where cultural mores are played out. You celebrate different kinds of traditions, and therefore you pass them on. You pass on the way those celebrations happen. They are also very critically a place where news and views are exchanged. And this has actually become more rather than less important as the technology allows us so much access to news and yet actually narrows the amount of news that we have access to. Especially if you use something like Google News, right? What does Google News serve up to you? Eli Pariser and others have talked about this. It serves up to you the news that it thinks you want to hear, based on things that you've clicked on before, based on search terms that you've used, right? What Google News is serving up to you is kind of much more narrow. So if you want to be active in your internet news, sure, you can go seek out, alternate websites. But in third rooms, right, you're going to have this exchange with people who maybe heard different news than you or heard the same news differently or have just different opinions about that news. Plus, you're in a space where these debates, where communication is really encouraged. So they serve that really important role, and in a lot of cases, these third places are also where really the important work of society is actually done. This is a pretty famous rendering of the Second Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, 1787. We tend to think of this as the way they went about fixing our Constitution, which was obviously a little bit imperfect beforehand, right? All of these white elites sitting in a room with their wigs on and whatever else. But quite frankly, although important work certainly did happen in this kind of a space, what did these guys do at the end of the day? They all retired to the taverns of Philadelphia, where they continued talking about this stuff, and where a lot of really important deals and compromises were hammered out. One of the most critical ones in our country's history was the decision to have a bicameral legislature, a Senate where representation was equal, and a House of Representatives where representation was proportional. That compromise was actually hammered out in a very famous Philadelphia tavern called the Indian Queen, and continues to serve us well today. So why is beer and not, say, wine or rum the critical driver of this kind of dynamic? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm going to say beer versus wine. We'll talk a little bit about liquor, but there's a really famous poem, actually. It's anonymous, which is amazing considering how famous it is, but it goes, of beer, it says, "It is the drink of men who think, who feel no fear nor fetter, who do not drink to endless sink, but drink to think the better," right? Beer, because of its alcoholic levels, and I know that modern extreme beers can approach the alcoholic levels of wine and of even liquor, but beer is usually in the 3% to about 5, maybe 6% range. This makes it a sessionable beverage. It means that you can sit there and have a number of beers over the course of an evening and still more or less get home, right? So this is nothing against wine or liquor. They both have their place. They can both be sublime. But I think beer does a better job of facilitating this conversation and the exchanges that happen in the third room, principally because of where it sits in terms of alcohol level. There's a couple other reasons, though, too. A beer culture can be local to just about anywhere. Unlike wine production, which is really heavily tied to where the grapes are grown. You don't harvest those grapes and then crush them 6 months later and make wine, right? You make wine once a year, every year, and you let it age. Beer making doesn't work that way. Once the barley has been turned into malt, you can store it for quite some time. Once the hops have been harvested and preserved, they are preservable for a pretty decent time. So you can have a brewery wherever you want. As long as you got decent water and some power, you can have a brewery. So beer can be local to just about anywhere, where wine is really a lot more tied to its location. And that's an important point, because when you talk about growing a beer culture, you're incorporating local beer into the scene. I would say as well that that's one of the reasons, this difference in production is one of the reasons why wine can attract that level of elitism. It's always going to be a lot more expensive than beer too, because again, it's tied to production in that kind of a way. So if you think a beer culture isn't really especially important, consider some of the ways in which people have sought to preserve their beer culture, right? This is an interior of a British pub. It's a little bit dark, but there's a group in Britain called CAMRA. It's the Campaign for Real Ale. It was started in about the early 70s, sometime 72 or 73, and their goal at that time was actually just to try to preserve some of these traditional English beers that were losing ground to mass-produced lagers from wherever, from across the sea. But what the people in CAMRA started to realize as they moved forward, they've done a pretty decent job of preserving what they call real ale, but what they started to realize is that real ale doesn't exist in a vacuum. And CAMRA today is as much about preserving the traditional pub culture, a really good third place of England, as it is about just preserving these beers. They recognize that the beers and the way they are drunk and the locations in which they are drunk are tied and not really entirely inseparable. There's other good examples of this too. One other one I could mention in passing. In Germany, the Reinheitsgebot, you may have heard of. It's the famous Bavarian purity law of 1516. It stipulated that beer can only be made of malted barley, water, and hops. They didn't really know about yeast yet. This is often misconstrued as some kind of consumer protection law, but not exactly. What was really going on is that the elites, A, didn't want there to be competition between the wheat growers and the barley growers, and B, they wanted the Weiss beer, the wheat beers, for themselves. So they basically said, yeah, you guys can't use that. It's all for us. But it had the effect of preserving, again, all of these various German styles of beer, and indeed, by doing that, preserving the culture that grew up around them and is intricately tied to them as well. So, if all of this has worked and you're all convinced that, yes, I need a beer culture back where I live, gee, Ethan, how would I do that? Well, I got a couple ideas for you. Number one, become a home brewer. I know, it sounds kind of weird, like, what, really? You want me to be a home brewer? But actually, much like, you know, the sort of localism trend that's going on, this is actually more of a hearkening to the past than it is something new. For most of human history, beer making was actually a home activity before the industrialization of beer. But when you become a home brewer, it's a pretty casual hobby. It's not necessarily going to take up a ton of your time, and it will teach you about the ingredients and the process of beer, and it will help you to understand what's going on in there, and it will help drive your understanding of beer and let you kind of move that forward. The second thing that you can do is become a connoisseur of local craft beers, right? Become a craft beer drinker. Know about the beers that are being produced in your area. Try to limit your consumption to those. Try to grow that, right? And this will pay dividends in terms of quality too, because beer is a product that's best enjoyed fresh, and so the freshest beer is usually the local beer. In general, what I'm asking you to do is go back and, like I'm trying to do here in Buffalo, imbeer Buffalo, go home and imbeer your home. So thank you very much, and cheers.